certain age, if someone dies young, they put the body in the Ganges. Mother Ganges will take them to the heavenly realms. That's probably what happens. If you put the body in the Ganges, the body's floating along. When the taco comes, brings it back to life, gives what's called picture initiation. So the parents were very eager to have him back in their company, but he refused. He said, no, my life is now with Shanga Taco. How not? So it's a very fascinating story. So let's read from Srimad Bhagavatam. Continue with the sixth canto. I'm not exactly sure what verse we're on. Are we beginning chapter 11?
Yes.
Okay, let's read the introduction first here. This chapter describes Ritusura's great qualities. When the prominent commanders of the demons fled, not hearing Ritusura's advice, Ritusura condemned them all as cowards. Speaking very bravely, he stood alone to face demigods. When the demigods saw Ritusura's attitude, they were so afraid that they practically fainted, and Ritusura began trampling them down. Unable to tolerate this, Indra, the king of the demigods, threw his club at Ritusura. But Ritusura was such a great hero that he easily caught the club with his left hand and used it to beat Indra's elephant. Struck by the blow of Ritusura, the elephant was pushed back 14 yards and fell with Indra on his back. King Indra had first accepted Vishnu as his priest and thereafter killed him. Reminding Indra of his heinous activities, Ritusura said, if one is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and depends on Lord Vishnu in every respect, then victory, opulence, and peace of mind are always inevitably available. Such a person has nothing which to aspire in the three worlds. The Supreme Lord is so kind that he especially favors such a devotee by not giving him opulence that will hamper his devotional service. Therefore, I wish to give up everything for the service of the Lord. I wish always to chant the glories of the Lord and engage in his service. Let me become unattached to my worldly family and make friendship with the devotees of the Lord. I do not desire to be promoted to the higher planetary systems, even to Dhruva or Brahmaloka, nor do I desire an unforgivable position within this material world. I have no need for such things. Unless I'm mistaken, you might ask, why did Indra kill his guru? If I remember rightly, Indra had arranged a specific sacrifice, and the name of his guru was Srimad. I can't remember the name now. Vishwarupa. Is there? Oh, yes, there. Yeah. Yes, priest. Yeah. King Indra first accepted Vishwarupa as his priest because Vishwarupa had a soft spot or was inclined to the demons also. So as far as I remember, he was offering oblations to the demigods, but secretly offering oblations to the demons as well. So Indra was not very satisfied with that, and he killed him. So that's what's being referred to here. I guess we reach the first purple. So text 1 and 2, I'll just read myself. Text 1. Shisukuvacha Panda. Okay, should we read the first one together? Shisukuvacha Tam evam samsato dhamam Vacha Padyo Achetasaha Vivakrinanta Sambranta Alayana Paralipa Shisukuvacha Tadevam Samsato Dhamam Vacha Padyo Nibhakrinanta sambranta Palayana paramipa Shisugovacha Ta evam samsato dhamam Vacha patyo achetasa Neva krinanta sambranta Palayana paramipa Shisugovacha Ta evam samsato dhamam Vacha patyo achetasa Neva akrinanta sambranta Palayana paramipa
Shri Shubhavacha
Devam samsato dhamma
Vajjavajjavachetasa
Palayana paramipa
Shri Shubhavacha
Shri Shubhavacha
Devam samsato dhamma
Devam samsato dhamma
Vajjavachetasa
Vajjavajjavachetasa
Nagavinanda Sambranta
Nagavinanta sambranta Palayana paramipa
Shri Shubhavacha
Shri Shubhavacha
Devam samsato dhamma
Devam samsato dhamma
Vajjavachetasa
Vajjavajjavachetasa
Nagavinanda Sambranta
Nagavinanta sambranta Palayana paramipa
Shri Shukavacha
Shri Shubhavacha
Evam Samsato Dharma
Devam samsato dhamma
Vacha Patyurachetasa
Vajjavajjavachetasa
Naivagihanta Sambranta
Naivakriyanta sambranta
Palayana Padandripa
Palayana paramipa Ladies, please.
Shri Shukavacha
Shri Shubhavacha
Dhamma
Devam samsato dhamma Vajjavajjavachetasa Naivakriyanta sambranta Palayana paramipa. Okay, what the word in translation is the very basic Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Sukhovacha. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, say, Evam thus, Samsataha, praising, Dharmam, the principles of religion, Rajaha, the words, Satyo, of their master, Achetasaha, their minds being very disturbed, not, Eva, indeed, Agrinanta, accepted, Sambranta, fearful, Palayana Paraha, intent upon fleeing, O king, translation. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, Vitasura, the commander-in-chief of the demons, advised his lieutenants in the principles of religion. But the cowardly demonic commanders, intent upon fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words. Text 2 and 3. Vishwamanam Pitanam Asura Shabara Kalam Kalaspridasai Kalyamanam Manam Anatatavat Drishtvala Vishvata Padyata Sankutta Indra Shakru Amasita Tannivayo Jashamrajan Nigrihasyetam Ubachara. Translation. O King Pariksit, the demigods taken advantage of a favorable opportunity presented by time, attacked the army of the demons from the rear and began driving away the demonic soldiers, scattering them here and there as if their army had no leader. Seeing the pitiful condition of his soldiers, Vritrasura, the best of the Asuras, who was called Indrashatru, the enemy of Indra, was very much aggrieved. Unable to tolerate such reverses, he stopped and forcibly rebuked the demigods, speaking the following words in an angry mood. Text 4. Kimva ucharate mato bhavat viprastato hate nahi pita kato shakyo na swakya suramanam. Translation. O demigods, these demonic soldiers have taken birth uselessly. Indeed, they have come from the bodies of their mothers, exactly like storm. What is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they were running in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who is afraid of losing his life. Such killing is never glorious, nor can it promote one to the heavenly planets. Purple. Vritrasura rebuked both the demigods and the demonic soldiers because the demons were running in fear of their lives and the demigods were killing them from behind. The actions of both were abominable. When a fight takes place, the opposing parties must be prepared to fight like heroes. A hero never runs from the field of battle. He always fights face to face, determined to gain victory or lay down life in the fight. That is heroic. Killing an enemy from behind is also inglorious. When an enemy turns his back and runs in fear of his life, he should not be killed. This is the etiquette of military science. Vritrasura insulted the demonic soldiers by comparing them to the stool of their mothers. Both stool and the cowardly son come from the abdomen of the mother, and Vritrasura said that there was no difference between them. A similar comparison was given by Tulsidas, who commented that a sun and urine both come from the same channel. In other words, semen and urine both come from the genitals, but semen produces a child, whereas urine produces nothing. Therefore, if a child is neither a hero nor a devotee, he is not a son but urine. Similarly, Chanaka Pandit also says, Katorita putrena jatena yono vidvam nadamikaha kanena chakshusha kimva chakshu pidheva kevalam. Quote, what is the use of a son who is neither glorious nor devoted to the Lord? Such a son is like a blind eye which simply gives pain but cannot help one see. In purple. Om Ganatamanandasya Gandana Salakaya Chakshum Vitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Sarasati Devi Kaulavani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatara Satanine Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Hare Krishna. So this is a great story. There's many wonderful stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the account or the different leelas spoken by one devotee. In this particular context, Sukadeva Goswami, and he's speaking to a king, Maharaj Parikshit, And this Maharaj Parikshit has been cursed to die. He has 7 days to live. And that's the whole story. This is the whole story here, and that's the whole story. But in essence, he had 7 days to live. He was the king. So he was inquiring what he should do or how to prepare for death. This was his questions. He had 7 days notice, so he wanted to prepare for death. So preparing for death in this context, and from the Vedic point of view, means you're not preparing for the end because the soul's eternal. You are preparing for your next life. So you're preparing your destination in your next life. And the Bhagavad Gita describes that one's destination in the next life very much depends on one's consciousness at death. Yeah. And consciousness at the time of death depends upon your life before that. Yeah. Just like our consciousness now depends on how much we ate at the Sunday feast yesterday. Or what we did the last week. Now our consciousness is the result of that. So this king, Maharaj Parikshit, there was different sages were coming forward and offering different advice, but he was a great devotee of Krishna, Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. So he understood, but following the etiquette of a king asking brahmanas, he was seeking their advice. So then one great sage came, Sukadev Goswami, and he spoke this book, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the 6th canto. There is 12 cantos, and it consists of 18,000 verses. Yeah, and it's fascinating in that Sukadev Goswami spoke the history of all the different incarnations of the Lord, and also the Lord's devotees, going back not just in this millennium, but going back millenniums and millions of years ago in different ages. And he collected and he spoke all these stories. Yeah? And this is one of the many stories which are contained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we think about it, if we went to a bookshop and someone in the bookstore said, "You see this book here? This contains stories that took place in the universe going back millions of years." Wow, that's a pretty good book. Of course, we might doubt that. Yeah, we might have some doubts in that. Yeah, but from the perspective of then these stories are presented in what's called dislibic succession. They are handed down from spiritual master to disciple, and the disciple then hands it down to their disciples, etc., etc. So it's called parampara. So these stories actually go back thousands of years. And all the stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam are quite well known to the devotees of the Lord. Because sometimes the devotees are perfected souls, but they're acting out being conditioned souls. And they meet different impediments in their worship of the Lord. And then it gives accounts of how they overcome these different impediments and ultimately attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is give us some background of Vritrasura. If you hadn't picked up, he's a demon. So often the Vedic scriptures in Bhagavad Gita, like there's a chapter called Divine and Demonic Qualities, chapter 16, is that right? Yeah, Divine and Demonic Qualities. Yeah. So there are persons who have the human form, but they're of a demonic mentality. They like to give pain and grief and suffering to others. Yeah. Real demons get a delight from that. Yeah. So these are known as demonic persons. And if they hear the word God, they hate to hear the word God even. They do not like any discussion on the subject of Krishna or the Supreme Lord. They are because they are and there's some we have what we call today evangelical atheists. Gotta say, they directly make their life to try and destroy the faith of persons who have faith in God. They preach against religion. I won't mention the names, but sometimes I one of my YouTube deviations is to watch debates between these what I call big mouth atheists and theists. So it's kind of interesting discussion. Yeah. So but then there's demons. The demons generally described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like these demons I spoke of, they have human form, but it's not as if they have pointed ears and sharp fangs for teeth and things like that. But this demon, Vritrashura, is a demon. Interesting. He has a demonic form, but he's not a demon. He's a devotee. And that's the whole story. How that came about. Yeah. And this story was told because when I think Maharaj Parikshit was hearing about Vritrashura, he became very curious. Then the whole story was told of Vritrashura. So just remember, Vritrashura is a divine person. That means he's very much inclined to do good. He's compassionate. He's very much devoted to Dharma. He's very much, he's very much devoted to God. That's his nature. But he has a fierce demonic form. Will probably take some to find description of his form. I remember he has, I wonder if there's probably might be a picture here. Anyway, you can find a picture of it and put it up there if you want. So he has, for instance, I'm not speculating here with demons, I can't remember it, but he had fangs, he had wiry, he had if it's what is a demon? he had fangs, and he would actually he wasn't a vegetarian. Being a demon, he would eat, having a demonic body. Yeah. He had wiry, he had coppery eyes. It's described like coppery eyes. And sometimes there's one description of some demons. They have their head is bald like a cooking pot, but they have wiry, big ears, pointed ears. Get the idea. Classic, what we might envision to be a demonic form. But he was very, very saintly. And what's happening here is Vritrasura, the demon, he understands that he is to be killed by a demigod, Indra. So the demigods, that means they are not God, but they are servants of God. They are demigods. Oh, this is him. This is Vritrasura. This is him, and this is Indra. This is when he catches Indra's thunderbolt, it looks like. He knocks Indra back. So this is Vritrashura. Yeah, he has sharp teeth. But he's actually a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. He's actually a saint. He doesn't look like a saint here. Doesn't look very saintly. And that's the mystery of this story. Yeah, it's a mystery. But he understands through intuition, he understands that it's providential that he's going to be killed by Indra, the king of heaven. And that's the whole story as well. Indra has a thunderbolt made of the bones of a great sage that was spoken of previously. That's the Dichi, if you've just joined us. That's the whole story as well. Yeah. The Dichi was approached by the demigods because they was told by the Supreme Lord that if you want to kill Vritrashura, then you need the bones of the Dichi in order to make a thunderbolt to kill Vritrasura. You follow the story? Yeah? So then they approached the Dichi. Excuse me, sir. Can I have your bones? So to have your bones, that means you're not going to live anymore, no? You have your bones, you have to die. So that's the whole conversation. And the Dichi knows the science of the soul and the difference between the soul and matter. And he begins, and basically actually gives them his bones. So then they make a thunderbolt out of the Dichi's bones. I don't know how they did that exactly. Please don't ask that question. I have no idea. But through mystical mantras and herbs and mystical cantations, which they had the power to do in those days, they would make a thunderbolt. So Indra has this thunderbolt which can kill Vritrasura, the demon stroke devotee. Yeah, can actually kill him. So Vritrasura knows this. Now Indra is a little bit hesitant because he understands that the way this person's speaking, this is not a demon. This is a devotee speaking. So he's hesitant to kill a devotee of the Lord, to attempt to kill a devotee of the Lord is a great wrong. And Indra is a demigod. So he's apprehensive about killing Vritrasura. Yeah. But Vritrasura wants to go back to the spiritual world to be with Krishna. And he understands that when he gets killed, that will be his destination. Yeah. So he's imploring Indra to not be afraid and come and kill me. Do your duty. Yeah, this is what's happening here. Yeah. So he's encouraging Indra to kill Vritrasura. So just again, so we may ask, how was it? It's another story. What happened that this devotee got such a body? Something must have went wrong down the line somewhere. Devotees don't have this type of body. But actually, this pastime brings up a very interesting thing because it highlights that devotees can come in any species of life and can have any bodies. Yeah, there are devotees like Prahlad Maharaj is a famous Daicha, born in a family of demons, the son of Hiranyakashipu. Yeah, but he is a devotee. So this highlights this point as well. Yeah, but then so then I tell the basic story very quickly. That Vritrasura, if I got this, he was a devotee called Chitraketu in his last life. And he was traveling, again, this is a very exciting book, Srimad Bhagavatam, describes he was traveling in an airplane, not like a Boeing 747 or something, but in a celestial airplane. And on this airplane were hundreds of thousands of, was it Vichadaras, was it? Or heavenly damsels who were there. There is beings in the heavenly worlds that are born specifically with the ability to sing and dance. They're called Gandharvas. Yeah, they're called Gandharvas. Celibate mystic sages listen to Lord Shiva. So that generally doesn't happen. Yeah. When sometimes husband and wife give class, isn't it? We have that. Husband and wife may give a class. But you don't see often that the wife is sitting on her husband's lap during the time of Bhagavatam. But that's what was Parvati. Yeah, she was sitting on Shiva's lap. So Chitraketu, he's in his heaven, he's in this airplane, and he sees this, and he knows the glories of Lord Shiva, and he smiles. From what I understand, he actually smiles in wonder. Wow, let's look at this. Let's look at this. Completely transcendental. This is Lord Shiva, and he smiles in wonder. Now Parvati, Lord Shiva's wife, she sees this and she becomes affronted because she thinks that he's laughing at Lord Shiva and he's ridiculing him. But he wasn't. It was, what we call it? We had that a couple of weeks ago. We had a by Rajabi Hari Prabhu, he gave us in one of our Pujari Sanghas, assumption. He assumed wrongly, or she assumed wrongly. She actually made a mistake. She saw Chitraketu smiling and she thought she was laughing at her husband. And she didn't take kindly to that. But he wasn't. He was smiling in wonder at 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 Lord Shiva. So Parvati, being the wife of Lord Shiva, she's a superintendent of the material energy, so she's not an ordinary lady. She's very, very powerful. So she cursed him. That may you smile at my husband, you laugh at my husband. For goodness, I curse you to take birth in a demonic species as a demon, and that's the body he got because of that curse. Yeah. So that's the story behind a devotee having a body which is demonic. Yeah. Now the interesting lesson in this story also is that how did Chitraketu react? I mean, how do we react when we are wrongly accused of something, or we may be wrongly accused? What's it? Tendency? No, it's not. Yeah, Chitraketu could have said, "Wait a minute, I didn't mean that. Lord Shiva, your husband's great. He's a wonderful devotee. I was smiling because he's so glorious." He could have took that one. No? You've got it wrong. You've assumed wrong. Please don't curse me. But Chitraketu is a great devotee, such a great devotee, that his reaction was that he came down. He came down before Lord Shiva and Parvati, or they could see him, and he had his hands like this, and he said, "Thank you, Mother, for this curse." Yeah, that was his reaction. So very, very deep religious principles, very, very deep. He was wrongly accused. Not only was he wrongly accused, but the results of being wrongly accused, that he would have to take birth in the body of a demon. Yeah. So that means he's inclined that in that body, I don't know if perhaps could we ask a question, was Vritrasura a vegetarian in the body of Vritrasura? Seems perhaps like not. He was in the body, so he would eat demigods. Here he's trampling on demigods, But he just took it. And that's why then Narayana Parashavi, what's that? Narayana Parashavi, that's why. Pushati Swaga Babhagarna Keshu Apistutaya Tadashanaha. Yeah. So then Lord Shiva says, just see the devotees of the Lord. Yeah. Just see his reaction to your curse. Yeah. You have cursed him, and he's accepted that curse, saying, "Thank you, Mother." And this verse describes that the devotees do not mind whatever happens to them. They may go to the hellish worlds, whatever situation, a devotee will always be a devotee. Even, okay, you may curse him to take birth as a body of a demon, but he's a devotee. He was going to be a devotee in that body. Wherever they go, the heavens or the hellish worlds, whatever situation you put them in, a devotee will always be devotee to the Lord. Even if a wrong is done to them, they will still maintain their faith in the ultimate ordinance and providential happenings which is coming from Krishna. Now it's very deep, because sometimes the things we go through in this world seem very unjust and unfair. So even as devotees, sometimes it takes us some time to adjust and to meditate on these things. So devotees, we always want to see what lessons can we learn, because this must have been arranged by Krishna. Yeah. So so getting back to the story here. So that's how Vritrasura is a devotee, but is in the demonic body. And here's some quite, can't speak on it much, but here's some quite describing about here, how, like here, Vritrasura insulted the demonic soldiers by comparing them to the store of their mothers. Both store and the cowardly son come from the abdomen of the mother, and Vritrasura said there's no difference between them. So you see, interesting, Srimad Bhagavatam is about God and about the devotees of God, but it's full of battles. There's quite a few battles there. And Kshatriyas, those who are by nature are Kshatriyas, they often speak like this, yeah, in order to show their prowess. They will criticize the enemy. Yeah. You useless so-and-so, how dare you face me? Yeah. So they often will speak quite strong words. But here it comes up, then Srila Prabhupada quotes Tulsidas. Yeah. Quite I hear words that the sun and urine both come from the same channel. In other words, semen and urine both come from the genitals, but semen produces a child, whereas urine produces nothing. Therefore, if a child is neither hero nor devotee, he is not the sun but urine. No. Sometimes Bhagavatam, sometimes devotees and sages get quite carried away, you know. So we should understand this in the right context, you know. We shouldn't think, you know, say if we've got a brother or sister that's not a devotee, we shouldn't start thinking. Should not speak to them as if they are like this, you know. We have to understand sometimes the devotees, they say things, and it's emphasizing here the glories of having a devotee as one's child. But sometimes that doesn't always work out. It doesn't always map out like that. Yeah. But still, we should be loving and we should be supportive as much as we can. So don't take these words. You could say, be careful when we hear this type of thing of how we may apply it. You know, we should always have a compassionate attitude and disposition to, even if one's children may not be devotees, you know, we should still give them support and as much love and affection as we can. You know, so anyway, it could be a big topic, but for this, perhaps I'll stop there. Any comments or questions on these points to help us further understand these? But yes, Javat Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Murli Manohara Prabhu, for giving us so much in-depth insight into the pastime. When you were talking there about Chitraketu speaking, well, smiling in astonishment at Lord Shiva,
Yes,
but Parvati took it in another way. So it's interesting that in modern law, and especially when considering how people are harmed psychologically, and then there's a kind of an understanding in law that if someone feels like threatened by someone else's statement, even if that statement isn't meant to threaten them,
right,
then it's kind of considered that still it can be inappropriate, and it's called harm by perception. That if the person perceives that the other person is like speaking to threaten them or to harm them, and then it's the responsibility of the person who's speaking to understand the nature of the person that they're speaking to. That's assuming that there's some kind of contractual relationship between them. So my question is that, therefore, it often seems in modern sociology, psychology, and dealing, especially in the field of helping people who have mental illness, it quite often seems that like the professional understanding of compassion almost is more elevated than our own. That we read about things in Srimad Bhagavatam at this very high level, and it seems almost that people are talking about these very high levels in their everyday lives, in their professional lives, but at the same time we know that they're not devotees, that they're not, that on another level they may be talking about that, but then they may still be like, eating meat and, taking intoxication. So that they're like, so how do we understand that? How do we, if we see someone who has qualities which appear to indicate if we see someone who has qualities which appear to be very fine, very fine sentiments in one field, but in another field their activities are very one could say very violent or very vicious. Is it correct? How should we protect ourselves?
Well, I don't know if I'll be able to answer the complete question, but one thing that comes to mind is that, okay, there may be healthcare professionals who deal with care and compassion for those who have mental disabilities or whatever it may be. And often they can be quite selfless, not often always completely selfless because they get paid, but still they have a loving and caring nature. So their compassion can only go so far, so to speak, in order to help maintain them on a daily basis and to give them some type of focus or some type of hope to live as normal life as possible, even though they have mental issues. So the nurses and the healthcare workers are there to assist them. But they do not and cannot possess the compassion of a Vaishnava who actually heart bleeds and they feel pain that people are incarcerated in the material world. Yeah, like their compassion of, you say, philanthropic people, they do not compare to the compassion of Prabhupada, for example. Yeah, Prabhupada has compassion not just for persons who has some mental disorders or things like. Prabhupada's compassionate for everyone, even a person who he's so-called materially okay. Prabhupada would have such deep compassion for them because they are lost. They're in the material world. There's stories where Prabhupada, one time, there's a couple of stories actually. One story, it's told that it's on Oxford Street, which is where our temple is in London. You might know this story, where Prabhupada was in the back of the car and he's going down Oxford Street, one of the busiest shopping streets on planet Earth. And the devotees are there in the car. And Prabhupada's shedding tears, seeing the plight of persons who have an eternal relationship with Krishna in the spiritual realm, here in this world of matter, toiling, trying to be happy. And there's tears coming from Prabhupada's eyes. Another time he was watching some old men, some retired persons play golf. Now, in Vedic culture, when you get to a certain age, you're supposed to dedicate your life to preparing for your next life. So you're supposed to dedicate your life to prayer. You're supposed to be a little bit austere, simplify your life and devote it to prayer and prepare your consciousness for death. That's what we're supposed to do when you reach 50. That you start winding the material side down and you start developing more the spiritual side in preparation for your next life. So Prabhupada saw these retired men. What are they doing? Trying to put a ball in a hole, playing golf. So we might laugh at that, but Prabhupada didn't laugh. Prabhupada was crying. Yeah, Prabhupada, so the compassion of a Vaishnava does it. The persons on the worldly platform trying to they're just trying to put band-aids, temporary things there. And it's good from the one point of view materially. It's good. And we need those people. And there's special people who can actually do that. I've had a little bit of experience of healthcare and workers and helping them. It actually takes a certain quality of a human being to actually be able to do that. To be able to do that, some of the things they have to do in taking care of people, it's like, wow. But in comparison to the compassion of a Vaishnava, they have no idea of the depth of the compassion of a. And the Vaishnava will give his whole life. Prabhupada gave his whole life. And Prabhupada was compassionate, not because there was a paycheck. At the end, he wasn't preaching, he wasn't spreading Krishna consciousness because there was going to be a paycheck at the end of it, like healthcare workers. Oh, they've got that paycheck. You know, I mean, would they continue doing that if there was no pay? Some people do, isn't it? So I'm going on a bit now, but when there's sometimes you hear in a war situation where the hospital workers, there's no money, there's no nothing, there's threat of death, but they carry on treating people. Those persons, they're like glorious, you know. But compared to the compassion of a Vaishnava, that's perhaps, the Shingavachapu, please, yeah. Please, yes, please.
So in the second chapter of the Gita, there's that statement by Arjuna where he addresses Krishna as Madhusudana, and you're the killer of the Madhu demon, and then the acharyas point out that he's having a dig at Krishna because he's saying you're killing a demon, but you're asking me to kill my gurus. And then Prabhupada explains that really, really strongly. He's saying that actually Krishna, and Prabhupada gives all the words, you know, I don't remember the words he was giving, but he gives all the words from the slokas. Actually, Krishna is saying that because they've made this mundane calculation, i.e., I have to fight on the side of Duryodhana because he's giving us financial, support. Prabhupada is saying this is a mundane consideration. Therefore, they're no longer qualified to be guru because they don't have the ability to guide you in service. Therefore, you can kill them. So Prabhupada was making the point is because it's a mundane calculation. That's the difference. It's like therefore they become unqualified because they're making a mundane calculation. So in the same way with these, mostly, not always, because you're always going to find people the exception, but with these people who are doing mundane welfare works, it's just mundane. It's just to do with the body. And even though sometimes we might see that devotees in their dealings may appear to be a little bit harsh sometimes, it's still a different level of consciousness because it's directed, the dealings are trying to be direct. They're not always, they're trying to be directed at the self. And because we're on that path, whereas the others are not on the path of spiritual life, generally speaking, then it's a very different thing.
Thank you for that. So that answers the second part of your question as well. I think very nice. Thank you, Nrsimhavachapu. All right, any other questions or comments on this subject? Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you for kind attention. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And I guess to take this opportunity, this is our last day here in Kuna Bhavan. Wonderful name, Kuna Bhavan. There's so much mercy here. Wonderful group of devotees. So thank you very much for your love and your association. Very inspired. Me and Shrink have been traveling quite a lot. And we thought, let's go to Scotland, but not to check out so much of deity worship, but just to relax and be with devotees and spend time, stay and have a bit of a wonderful break. So thank you for letting us stay here. We'll be traveling early tomorrow morning back to London. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Contrastion Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Gauda Premanandi. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Yeah.